opportunity to speak at this parliamentary meeting in support of Aamer today, and thank you to all those who made the effort to be here. Each and every individual weighing in this evening does so with a sense of urgency. As you introduced me, I am Diana Murtaugh Coleman, and I'm a doctoral candidate in the School of Historical, Philosophical, and Religious Studies at Arizona State University, and I'm writing my dissertation on Guantánamo. I've worked as a researcher for the Center for the Study of Religion and Conflict at Arizona State for 6 years, and have been involved in religious and cross-cultural studies in Indonesia as well. I'm also an activist, and so I've campaigned for the release of Aamer and the closure of the secretive military system, of which Guantánamo is simply the most visible piece, both in the United States and abroad for too many years now. I'm trained to apply theoretical interventions to data, to archival materials, cultural interviews, texts, and happenings, drawing variously on cultural anthropology, religion, philosophy, history, psychology, sociology, linguistics. In other words, to think across the humanities. To render theoretical interventions to the situation at Guantánamo in the course of my research and writing requires me to consider the implications of the existence of such a prison system wrought by the United States in the 21st century. Firstly, we would do well to acknowledge that Guantánamo functions as a synecdoche. That is, it is the piece of a larger apparatus that comes to stand for the whole, like invoking Parliament, with the knowledge that somehow the meaning encompasses the land, the buildings, both houses, the sessions and meetings, the individuals who hold seats, and the disembodied laws put forth. The name stands for the whole, but has a troubling tendency to disappear the particulars, as in, this is a parliamentary meeting, but much of Parliament is nowhere to be found. There are some 650 members combined between the House of Commons and House of Lords, I believe, and so as an American I find this familiar. You know, a congressional meeting might look the same in terms of attendance. So kudos to those members of Parliament who care to be present, and shame on those who do not. So what literatures might we draw on to understand Aamer's ongoing imprisonment? Some of the most promising fail us because we've consistently broken the compacts that were devised in the hushed aftermath of World War II. I've been working days and lying awake nights thinking about what arguments I might make to bring Aamer into focus and members of Parliament into action on Aamer's behalf. Shall we talk about human and legal rights? It would seem appropriate, but those are discourses and mechanisms that have been strategically eviscerated in the 21st century. American University professor of law Munir Ahmed emphasizes that Guantánamo is often placed in the human rights frame, but that Guantánamo has become a project of dehumanization in the literal sense. It has sought to expel the prisoners, consistently referred to as terrorists, from our shared understanding of what it means to be human, so as to permit, if not necessitate, physical and mental treatment abhorrent to human beings. This has been accomplished through 3 forms of erasure of the human. Cultural erasure, through the creation of a terrorist narrative. Legal erasure, through formalistic legerdemain. And physical erasure, through torture. Thinking through this argument has helped me understand that I want to pursue the framing posed by Ahmed. It is not that prisoners like Aamer were deprived of their human or legal rights, rather they were excised from the category of human belonging. So how can members of this government and mine be persuaded to move Aamer back into the category of human? And at what peril to their own, your own, our own moral standing is Aamer left partitioned in this nightmarish quagmire that I have yet to hear anyone in this government or mine explain in a satisfactory manner? Aamer's case was prominent in the Guantánamo Public Memory Project's installation with accompanying film and lecture series in Phoenix, at which I spoke at in November of last year. A number of visitors to the project, which ran for 6 weeks at my university but has moved around the country, chose to dedicate their messages to Aamer and his family in solidarity. Those messages, which are etched into shards of wet clay and fired, will become part of a permanent installation. They are part of history. People will remember Shocker's name and his story, and they will remember how the rest of his life plays out. I was in Chicago in April for the annual Human Rights meeting of Amnesty International US. A table with Shocker's information and postcards, like we have here tonight, similar, were available, and there were volunteers there to discuss the particulars of his case. But Shocker's case was also one of the select few that was highlighted during a standing room only concurrent session, ending the forever war at home and abroad, surveillance, drones, Guantánamo, and Islamophobia. His case is in the public eye and in the historical record. A common adjective applied to Guantánamo by those who have some connection, be it legal, journalistic, academic, activist, or familial, is Kafkaesque. And people think of The Trial, a novel about a man who cannot know his crime or the structure which accuses him. I tend to think of this short story, In the Penal Colony, where a torturous instrument needles an excruciating and fatal tattoo onto the bodies of prisoners who have never received their sentence, but will nevertheless have it imprinted upon their bodies. The machine has fallen into disuse, but when the officer brings the apparatus back to life to submit himself to what he considers beautiful perfection of the system, programming it to tattoo him with the words, "Be just," the machine begins to break apart, and he is pierced through the forehead. Kafka knew that we, our consciousness, comes to be marked, and our humanity disfigured by the injustices and injuries we inflict upon others. So how, I wonder, have we come to such a low point in the 21st century that an uncharged man can languish in an American gulag for over 12 years? I fear we have learned exactly nothing from the past, and for that we should be fearfully ashamed. If the case is, as claimed, that the decision to release Shocker Aamer lies entirely in the hands of the U.S. government, my government, then I am here today alongside all you people of goodwill to ask that this government, that your government, exert every possible ounce of political capital to insist that my government do the right thing and release Shocker Aamer before it is too late, before his life is further shortened by the conditions in which he is kept, before he dies in that hellhole of Guantánamo, having never held his youngest child. If there are less forthright concerns, and those have been alluded to tonight, then those must be aired and addressed, and the sooner the better. The reputations of my government and yours can only be further damaged should Shocker Aamer, a legal resident of this country, die mired in lawless labyrinths. Every day the stain of democracy dishonored seeps a bit beyond the borders of the day before. And we are all implicated, but those with the power to bring Shocker home, those in a position to uphold the law, those most of all. If he goes to his grave, they take his unjust death to their grave, on their conscience. This room is full of witnesses. This meeting happened. You and your fellow parliamentarians cannot claim ignorance. And I am copying this, actually I already did, to President Obama and members of the U.S. House and Senate, so there is yet another record. Martin Luther King and transcendentalist Theodore Parker before him believed that the arc of the moral universe is long, but that it bends towards justice. Well, the arc of history doesn't hold much weight with me. I don't take a teleological view. How can any of us believe that mankind is evolving after the horrors of the last century and the violence that has unfolded in the 21st century? That said, we might contemplate for a moment, or always, that impulse towards justice. In the stages of moral development, to do the right or wrong thing because of fear of punishment is the basest action. One hopes for loftier concerns, a more transcendent morality, a principled conscience at work. There is no way to erase the terrible wrongs that surround Guantánamo. The accounts of torture stand. People will continue to come forward, and documents will continue to come to light. The archive will survive, and history will not be kind. I'm going to work on this some way, shape, or form the rest of my life, and so will many others. and there will be no cheap grace afforded to those responsible. But still there is this, the possibility to take the right and humane action and bring this man, a British resident, home to his British wife and 4 children. His natural life has inarguably been shortened by his 12 years of imprisonment and the conditions that accompanied that imprisonment. So he has been doubly robbed. Add to that the sure knowledge he will never again be the same person. And the damage is incalculable. But I cannot emphasize strongly enough that this government and mine must allow Shocker to spend his final years with his family. Thank you.